From Rodriguez complaining about characters that keep coming back from the dead, to the movie raking in poor reviews from critics and fans alike, here's how the cast of Fast X reacted to the franchise being dead. Now, times are tough, and not every franchise can skyrocket to stardom. And obviously, there's gonna be a little bit of bad blood every now and then, which is why the Fast X cast has a bone to pick with the franchise. Like Michelle Rodriguez, for example. She's been part of the Fast and Furious franchise since the beginning. You'd think Michelle would be the definition of ride or die, but that's not really the case. She admitted she wasn't too fond of the idea of Letty returning to the Fast and Furious franchise. Maybe because Rodriguez is tired of working on movies in which her character always dies. But that's not the part she's got a problem with. Nah. She's annoyed that the character is always revived again and again, to the point that it got old. Michelle was no longer a fan of the concept and even questioned what her character's death would mean. If Letty's gonna get revived anyway, then what's the point of killing her off and grieving, you know? She explained that this resurrection curse isn't just limited to the Fast and Furious franchise, but also extends to other projects that she's worked on, like Resident Evil and Machete. In all three cases, her character was supposed to stay dead, and Rodriguez has no plans to continue the cycle. She said, "We can't do a fourth. That would be overkill." And did you know that in all the cases mentioned, Rodriguez wasn't even told she would be coming back? Apparently, it was confirmed that her character had been killed off for good every time. But when family is involved, there's no way you're gonna be 6 feet underground for too long. Not on Vin Diesel's watch. Anyway, that's not the only thing that Rodriguez disliked about the franchise. Michelle hated how her character was put in a sexist box. In June 2017, the actress revealed on Instagram that she'd consider leaving the Fast and Furious franchise. Wait, what? Why? Well, it's mainly because the films don't show love to their female characters. Now, you probably already know that this is an issue in the series, which is wild considering there are loads of leading actresses that fans adore. Like Rodriguez's character for one, and countless other memorable roles. Not to mention those played by Gal Gadot, Helen Mirren, Jordana Brewster, and even Charlize Theron. But these women are just there to look pretty and serve as agents for the male character stories. They don't even talk to each other much in the series. I mean, give the women in the franchise some personality, for crying out loud. And honestly, that's what Michelle has been fighting for too. Oh, and she's not backing down on her comments. TMZ asked her if she still feels the same way about the franchise. She said that she supports female empowerment, and if she starts to feel a little stagnant in that area work-wise, then she's gonna have to move on. Rodriguez added that she really hopes to see the screenwriters show some love to the women in the franchise, because things are bad. The actress can count on one hand all the times she's talked to the female actresses in the franchise, which is really sad. But she's not the only cast member who dislikes certain aspects of the franchise. Tyrese Gibson did not like F9's plot. What justifies going to space? I thought the Fast and Furious franchise was all about racing, and it seems Gibson agrees. He shared in an interview with Vulture that he thought the plot of going to space was a joke. How did he react to the news? Well, he couldn't really believe it at first and started laughing because he wasn't sure if the news was even legitimate. But when no one laughed with him, he had to confirm if they were actually serious about the gang going to space. The more Tyrese thought about it, the more doubts he had about the whole thing. The actor even tried to solve the issue by pitching another character to go up instead of Roman. He shared how he started campaigning for Ludacris to go to space alongside Natalie Emmanuel. According to him, these characters were always talking about gadgets and computers, which isn't exactly in his wheelhouse, you know? Sadly, the movie's producers did not like his idea and shut it down right there, which means the actor just had to let them do their thing, even though he didn't support the idea. And guess what? After his comments, Gibson's phone started blowing up with texts. But they weren't all about his hesitation over the crew going to outer space. He even got schmuck about what he ended up saying and doing when he went to outer space. Tyrese ended his statement with an air of defeat, adding that the producers and writing team make the big bucks for a reason. But he's not the only person who thought the plot was weird. Even Vinny agreed that going to space might be overkill. Yep, that's right. The star of the franchise had his doubts, and explained that he initially went back and forth over the idea, because he was in disbelief for quite some time. The space sequence has definitely gotten some mixed reactions, with some fans thinking the whole thing was just too ridiculous. But hey, the series is all about trying new things, right? I just wish the ideas were grounded a little bit in reality. So, did things get any easier for the cast in terms of the Fast and Furious franchise? Not exactly, because director Justin Lin left Fast X mid-production, and the cast didn't take the news too well. I mean, it makes sense, you know? It's not exactly the easiest news to accept, especially since Lin left the 10th film in the early days of production. The crew were hoping for a smooth transition when it came time to replace Lin. Something that even Vin Diesel confessed wasn't the easiest thing in the world to deal with. He shared with Total Film that it definitely wasn't an easy time. But here's an inside scoop you might not know. It was reported at the time that Lin left the franchise thanks to a creative disagreement between him and Diesel. Can you believe it? What did Vinny think of Lin saying sayonara to the franchise? He took the high road and seemed pretty gracious when the topic came up. In fact, he went into detail when discussing his feelings about Lin as a director and a man. Diesel shared that there were still traces of the pandemic, which put so much pressure on production. But don't worry, he added that he's not mad and has only got love for Justin, and gratitude for the work that he did to make the first week of filming happen. But sometimes you gotta find a way to get the work done. Here's the thing that's been bugging me though. Could this be a bad omen for the franchise's future? I mean, you might agree with me when you find out that the new director made the actors beg to keep their characters alive. Now that's just straight up cruel. It's a good thing that Louis Leterrier meant it as a joke. And he pulled this funny stunt in an interview with Collider's Steve Weintraub. So, what exactly does the process of begging a director even look like? Well, the actors had to write Louis letters in which they begged him to keep their characters alive, if the director deemed them worthy. Guess what? Some of the stuff they wrote even made its way into the Fast X script. But who's got the final say in all this? Obviously, Leterrier. But it's only because the guy's able to see the big picture. He explained that he basically went deep into the rabbit hole and knew what he wanted in his vision, you know? Everyone can't fit the director's cut, which Louis even mentioned during the interview. He discussed how he had to make some harsh decision, but it's okay because he had the overall franchise in mind. He knew what was coming in the next movie, so he's got to do what's necessary to keep the storyline on track. Okay, but seeing how the movie's already been released, here's the main question that everyone's got on their minds. Is the movie even worth the hype? If critics have got any say, then nope. Variety's Fast X review didn't have anything nice to say about the movie. The review called the first part of the finale vaguely defined, and that the majority of the movie was spent with Vin Diesel and company deciding where the franchise was going. Yikes. Another review from Variety by Peter DeBruge wasn't too enthusiastic about the finale either. DeBruge felt that 2 more parts to the finale were too much, and said how it was bad enough that Fast X is half a story that stalls its way to a cliffhanger, which might just be a first for the franchise. And that's all. From the movie raking in poor reviews from critics and fans alike, to Michelle Rodriguez complaining about characters always getting revived in the series, that was how the cast of Fast X reacted to the franchise being dead.